What's up, YouTube? It's officially mock draft season. Let's go ahead and just get straight into it here. We do have the Raiders sitting at the number one pick right now. I will say I did edit this draft order just to make it a bit more realistic. I hope none of you take an issue to me editing the draft order. I really just edited the top 10. I didn't really mess with anything else, but I just try to make it the most realistic draft order possible. This is how I think these teams will end up finishing, and this is how I think the top 10 will sort of shape out. This is just a projection, so I could be totally wrong on this, but I think this could potentially be pretty accurate. I do think the Las Vegas Raiders are probably not going to win another game. I did peep their schedule for the rest of the season, and I looked at all of these teams' rest of their schedule along the way. So yeah, that's really what I looked at to determine this draft order. But without further ado, let's get straight into it, guys. We got the Las Vegas Raiders sitting at the number one overall pick. Obviously, the Las Vegas Raiders are. I don't think any Raiders fans expected to be number one overall pick bad, but they have legitimately been that bad. And when you look at their roster, they have a great roster. Obviously, you got a superstar on defense in Max Crosby, and I would consider Brock Bowers a superstar even in his year two season. Tight end out of Georgia, and then you got Ashton Genty, who was a top 10 pick in last year's draft. Who, I mean, a lot of people are a bit disappointed in his, first season because at Boise State he was breaking records and doing all this crazy stuff, finishing second in Heisman, but he just doesn't really have the offensive line to really work with right now. The Raiders have one of the worst offensive lines in the entire league right now. But I just think, sitting at number one overall pick, I think you got to go ahead and select your quarterback. And who's the franchise quarterback in this draft? Fernando Mendoza. I think he is going to win the Heisman tomorrow morning. By the time this comes out, you guys will know who the Heisman is already, but I don't know who it is yet because this is the night before. But assuming Fernando Mendoza is the Heisman, even if he doesn't win the Heisman, I still think he'll be the number one overall pick, especially if the Raiders are selecting with the number one overall pick. Geno Smith just hasn't really lived up to what I think Pete Carroll was hoping for, or even just the Raiders organization in general was hoping for. So yeah, Fernando Mendoza, I think he's going to be a franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years. And by the way, cool thing about Fernando Mendoza, guys, is I was actually at Cal Berkeley when they played Miami last season. Cam Ward versus Fernando Mendoza. Obviously, I didn't know Fernando would end up becoming to be this great of a player, but even in that game, I noticed Fernando Mendoza was actually kind of outperforming Cam Ward in that second half, and then Cam Ward just went absolutely nuclear in that second half, and Miami ended up winning that game, coming back. They were down at the half, but just a cool thing I can say is I've probably seen the last two number one overall picks, assuming Fernando Mendoza does end up being selected with the number one overall pick. I could say I've seen the back-to-back number one overall picks in Cam Ward and Fernando Mendoza. So I thought that was a cool thing to share. So with the second overall pick, we got the New York Jets, guys. So where can the Jets go? Obviously, they kind of offloaded a lot of their talent there with Sauce Gardner being traded and Quinnen Williams. I thought they were going to move off of Brees as well. So you still have good, they still have a good roster, I would say. You got Brees Hall, who can be a franchise running back for you. He's a great player. I think he's a top 10, top 15 running back in the league. You got Garrett Wilson, who I believe talent-wise is a top 10 wide receiver. He just hasn't really had the quarterback to throw him the football, so I think I'm going to go quarterback here. I don't think Justin Fields is the answer. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor is like 35, 36 years old. And to me, guys, at first, Ty Simpson was looking great at the start of the year. And Ty Simpson was leaning to be my quarterback one like the first few weeks of the season. But he just hasn't really lived up to it towards the back half of the season. So I do think Ty Simpson's draft stock has really plummeted a bit. And then I like Brendan Sorsby. I think he's a draft riser for sure. Lenora Sellers, I think he's going to go back to college. I think he's probably going to hit the portal. Jaden Mayava, I'm a USC fan. Do I think he's a first-round talent? No, I do not. But Jaden Mayava, really like him. Garrett Nussmeier hasn't really played. I don't even know if he's going to get drafted at this point because he's just been so bad. I think he's going to be a 6th, 7th rounder. He was getting a lot of first-round buzz at the start of the year. And then K. Klubnik, man. Cade Klubnik, he was probably my quarterback one going into the season. I really just thought Cade Klubnik and Clemson I thought they were going to have an amazing season, and they're probably the biggest flop in all of college football, alongside with Penn State. Drew Aller, a lot of people had some first-round buzz on him as well. But to me, guys, quarterback two in this draft right after Fernando Mendoza is Dante Moore. So I'm going to go ahead and select Dante Moore for the New York Jets. Solidify your quarterback for the future. So with the third overall pick, guys, this is where it gets interesting to me. The Giants, obviously you have your quarterback of the future in Jackson Dart. You don't really have to worry about quarterback. Running back room is solid with Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scadaboo. Wide receiver, I think, is definitely a possible option here to, get another outside weapon alongside Malik Neighbors. But you do got guys I like Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton's been there for a while. Theo Johnson, the tight end, is a stud out of Penn State. So I really just think the Giants here, if they wanted to go offense, I would look to trade back. Maybe with a team like the Washington Commanders. I know they're in your division, but I mean, their defense is just so bad. I think they would love, the choice to select the best defensive player in the draft, whoever that is to them. But obviously, trading in division isn't really likely at all. But just to give you guys, an example here with a team that could trade back. But I think the Giants are probably going to stay here and select the best defensive player in the draft. Now, who do I think that is? Caleb Downs probably is. But in terms of positional value, I think Ruben Bain to a lot of teams would probably be the number one defensive player. Caleb Downs to me is probably the best defensive player in this draft, but it's a close second with Ruben Bain. Arvell Reese I like a lot, but I think a lot of people are projecting him to be more of an edge rusher in the league. But Ruben Bain is a stud out of Miami, guys. But Caleb Downs, I've been seeing a lot of people put the generational tag on him. I'm not going to go ahead and do that quite yet. I try to be patient with throwing that generational tag on people. But Caleb Downs, guys, I just don't think the Giants are going to go ahead and pass on him here. And I think they're going to go ahead and select Caleb Downs with the 3rd overall pick. Now we got the Tennessee Titans, guys, sitting with the 4th overall pick. Another interesting team here, guys. You could take Ruben Bain Jr. That would be back-to-back years. You took a Miami Hurricane in the 1st round. Arvell Reese, like I said, is an absolute stud. I'm not trying to downplay Arvell Reese at all. I think the world of these two players. But, guys, I think this might have to be an offensive pick. Their offense is just so ridiculously bad. And a lot of people will say this is a reach taking Jordan Tyson or a Cardinal Tate this early, guys. But, could this be another trade back situation? Yes, it definitely can. I don't know, guys. I think this is a tough one because you could choose Ruben Bain, who a lot of teams, I'm assuming that's probably their best defensive player on their board, guys. But I don't know. If I'm the Tennessee Titans, I really want to, get the most out of Cam Ward. And I think you got to go with a receiver. I just think this pick needs to be offense. It could definitely be offensive line as well. Maybe a Spencer Fano here. But I don't know, guys. I just don't think it's going to be offensive line. I think it's actually going to be a skill position here. I think it's going to be a Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. I know a lot of you guys are probably shocked by that pick. Turn on the tape with Jordan Tyson. I think he projects more of like a Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson is my comparison for a Jordan Tyson here. The question I'm going to ask you guys here is, would Garrett Wilson be worth the 4th overall pick? I think a lot of you guys would go ahead and say yes. And if you say no, you don't really realize Garrett Wilson's talent. He just hasn't had the quarterback. But I just think, to me, I look at it as like, would I take a number 1 wide receiver with the 4th overall pick? I absolutely would. Would I take a Garrett Wilson with the 4th overall pick? I absolutely would. So I'm going to Jordan Tyson for the Tennessee Titans. Now we get to the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I think if they're able to select one of these guys at the top, with Kyler Murray likely being on the move, if they can select a Dante Moore or Fernando Mendoza, they absolutely would. But I just don't think they're going to be bad enough. Maybe they do trade up with the Raiders or the Jets, but I don't see any of these teams trading out. Ty Simpson, definitely a possibility. I wouldn't take him with the top 5 pick at all, though. And I think, the Arizona Cardinals seem to love their Ohio State players. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., you got Paris Johnson, Cody Simons, Denzel Burke. I think they're going to continue the Ohio State trend, guys. And I actually do think they're going to go ahead and select Arvell Reese with the 5th overall pick. Arvell Reese to the Arizona Cardinals with the 5th overall pick. Now, the Cleveland Browns. I think they could definitely go wide receiver here. Shedeur Sanders looks to be, he's playing great right now. I don't know if they love him enough for him to be their starting quarterback. I think if they did have the number 1 overall pick, would they select a Fernando Mendoza? Probably, honestly. And I'm a big Shedeur guy. I love Shedeur. I think the world of Shedeur, honestly. I really am a big Shedeur fan. If you know me, if you follow me on social media, you guys know I love Shedeur. But do I think they should get him a weapon, or do I think they should protect him? I think they should protect him, actually. So I'm going to go Spencer Fano, Utah. I think he's my tackle 1. But Spencer Fano is my tackle 1 in this draft. He's an insane athlete for his size. I turned on the tape with him, and I really liked what I saw out of Spencer Fano. I'm not claiming to be an offensive line guy or, a big, tape guy when it comes to offensive line. But I did watch, some film on him, and I really do like what I saw from Spencer Fano. So I'm going Spencer Fano with the 6th overall pick to the Cleveland Browns to go ahead and protect Shedeur Sanders. Now, we got the New Orleans Saints here. They're in a bit of a pickle at quarterback. I don't think Tyler Shook or Spencer Rattler is necessarily the long-term answer, but I think they're good enough for, I think, Shook and even Spencer Rattler really did earn another, season to at least be the starting quarterback. So I don't think Ty Simpson or even Lenoris Sellers, like I said, I don't think he's going to stay and declare for the draft, but I don't think any of them are really the suitable pick here. But Ruben Bain Jr., guys, has legitimate potential to go with the number 1 overall pick, so I think he technically really just falls in the Saints' lap here. He's definitely the best player available here. I'm going to go Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami to the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Washington Commanders are really pissed off by this because I definitely think they wanted to select Ruben Bain Jr. This is a team that just needs to be defense, guys. It needs to be defense. They're one of the worst defenses in the entire league. Do I think they need help offensively as well? Yes. I think they need a tight end with Zach Ertz's injury. Kenyon Sadiq is tight end 1 in this draft for sure. I do think this would be the pick if they were a little bit better and they had a little bit of a worse pick. But with the 8th overall pick, I wouldn't go tight end. I don't think he's a Brock Bowers level prospect, and Brock Bowers went with like the 12th or 13th pick. So I'm definitely not taking Kenyon Sadiq with the 8th overall pick. And I know it kind of just looks like I'm picking at the top right now, but these, I legitimately agree with PFF's rankings, which I normally don't. But as far as the top 10, you can't really get this wrong here. I'm going to go Peter Woods. I think, he really projects as like a Byron Murphy defensive tackle on the Seahawks to me. And, Peter Woods is an absolute game wrecker. He's a stud. So I think they want to get, some talent with losing Jonathan Allen last season. So definitely Peter Woods to beef up the trenches, beef up the defensive line for the Washington Commanders. I really do like that pick. Now, the Rams having a top 10 pick is absolutely absurd. Obviously, this is from the Falcons. So to me, with the 9th overall pick, guys, I think they're going to go ahead and select a tackle that I really like, and that's Francis Magua. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but Francis Magua out of Miami, I definitely think he's tackle 2 in this draft. And like I said, I'm really agreeing with PFF's rankings. I do like Caleb Proctor. Caleb Lomu, I'd probably put above Caden Proctor and Jennings Dunker, though. So I don't technically agree with that here. But Francis Magua, I think, I know a lot of people are expecting the Rams to maybe go quarterback here, but none of these quarterbacks are really calling my name here. I don't think the Rams would go ahead and reach for a quarterback, especially Stafford's playing like he has 2 or 3 more years in him. Probably going to go ahead and win MVPs. Personally, my MVP in the league right now, so far this season. So Matthew Stafford, I think he's just going to continue balling, but why not protect the old man and get him Francis Magua? So Francis Magua with the 9th overall pick to the LA Rams. Now we got the Cincinnati Bengals, guys. I'm really just not a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals organization, to be completely honest with you. If they move off Joe Burrow, I think this is more realistic than a lot of people are expecting. I know Joe Burrow, if you watch his press conference the other day, he sounded like he was debating retirement, and that's really just how bad the Cincinnati Bengals organization has been for them. Obviously, he has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. This is probably the best wide receiver duo in the league, but offensive line has been horrible. The Bengals franchise just doesn't know how to evaluate talent, just continuously drafting first-round busts. It just hasn't been good, guys. It hasn't been good for the Cincinnati Bengals. This needs to be an offensive line pick or a defensive pick. It's probably going to be a defensive pick. I do think this defensive draft is absolutely stacked. So to me, guys, I think Mansour Delane here is my CB1 over Jamard McCoy. Jamard McCoy hasn't even played this season. He's been injured. I think it's going to be sort of a Will Johnson situation where he probably slips into the second round. Is he a first-round talent? Absolutely. But so was Will Johnson, and he ended up slipping because of injury. So Mansour Delane and Avion Terrell this is AJ Terrell's brother, for those of you guys that don't know. But yeah, guys, Bengals are super just interesting. This needs to be a defensive pick. Keldrick Falk is a player that I think could go as early as top 10 to me. So he's definitely a play here. TJ Parker, LT Overton, I like a lot. David Bailey. I'm not as big as Cassius Howe. I think he should be a bit down here maybe. I don't think I'm going to end up selecting him in the first round. If I do, it'll probably be towards the end of the first round. But to me, guys, Sonny Styles was projected to be an end of the first over or first round pick, and he's really played himself into legitimately being a top 3, top 4 defensive player in this draft, guys. He's playing his tail off right now for Ohio State. And some even have him over Arvell Reese. I wouldn't go that far, but Sonny Styles definitely is playing out of his mind right now. So Sonny Styles to the Cincinnati Bengals makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to go Sonny Styles with the 10th overall pick. The Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy hasn't lived up to the hype that he was, receiving throughout the draft process, and being the 10th overall pick. He was one of the biggest draft risers I have ever seen. I had a second round grade on him, and then he just shot up after winning the national championship and ended up going with the 10th overall pick. So just crazy situations. Still one of the craziest draft situations to me. I've never seen, like I said, I've just never seen a quarterback rise to that level to me. But guys, Jerimiyah Love, this just seems like a seamless fit to me. I don't think Jordan Mason or Aaron Jones are bad running backs by any means, but I think Jerimiyah Love is an absolute game changer. He is 100% an absolute game changer. Jerimiyah Love to the Vikings this is the easiest pick for me in the first round. I just really think, you got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, and Jordan Mason. Like I said, solid running back room. But Jerimiyah Love, to me, this is a no-brainer pick. If Caleb Downs were to somehow fall to the Vikings, I don't think it's going to happen. But if he does, I'd go Caleb Downs before Jerimiyah Love. But to me, I just think Jerimiyah Love, man, to the Vikings makes too much sense. I'm going Jerimiyah Love. Could he be the greatest running back in Vikings history? You'd have to be better than Adrian Peterson. That'd be pretty crazy. And Dalvin Cook was no scrub either. So Vikings are not, new to having superstar running backs. I think that he's the next great running back for the Minnesota Vikings, guys. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins. I think this needs to be a defensive pick as well. To me, Mansour Delane here is a seamless fit. Obviously, losing Jalen Ramsey to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just would love to see the Miami Dolphins improve that defense. Mansour Delane here, my CB1. First CB off the board here. Now, the Baltimore Ravens have really... Their defense has fallen off. Keldrick Faulk could be a pick here. David Bailey as well, guys. But I think a lot of you guys are not really going to expect this. I'm going Carnell Tate to the Baltimore Ravens, guys. Mekhi Lemon, to me, Mekhi Lemon and Carnell Tate, I have said in the past that Mekhi Lemon is my wide receiver 2 in this draft. So I know I'm being kind of a hypocrite taking Carnell Tate, but I think Carnell Tate is a better fit for Zay Flowers. I think Mekhi Lemon and Zay Flowers is a bit redundant. And like I said, I am a USC Trojan fan, and I'm a huge fan of Mekhi Lemon. He just won the Biletnikoff Award. But I'm going to go ahead and take Carnell Tate before Mekhi Lemon just because of the team that's here. And, get Lamar Jackson a big body threat. Give me Carnell Tate to the Baltimore Ravens with the 13th overall pick. I would love this pick. Carnell Tate on the Ravens would be so fun to watch. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs are pissed because Jerimiyah Love is off the board. The Minnesota Vikings took him. So, what do they do here? Their defense has been god-awful. It has been god-awful. But their running game, man, has been so bad. But I don't think any of these running backs are worth a first-round pick this year. I'll just be honest. I think Jerimiyah Love is the only running back I have a first-round grade on. I would actually have his backup running back for Notre Dame, Jadarian Price, over Jonah Coleman. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, another great running back duo there for Penn State. But I just don't think any of these running backs are worth taking in the first round. Would I like to see Kansas City Chiefs end up with the Jonah Coleman or a Nick Singleton in the second round? Yes, I absolutely would. But with the 14th overall pick, we're not reaching for a running back here. Kenyon Sadiq is definitely a play, but Travis Kelce, I feel like a lot of people are kind of overreacting to Travis Kelce's play. Is he the superstar he once was? Absolutely not. But is he still a top 10, top 12 tight end in the league? Absolutely. You don't need to reach for a tight end. Not saying Kenyon Sadiq is a reach. I will rephrase that. But I just don't think there's too many holes on this team. I think this needs to be a defensive pick here. And to me, guys, Keldrick Faulk is a great player, but David Bailey is playing his tail off for Texas Tech right now. I think I have David Bailey over Keldrick Faulk. Texas Tech, guys, their defense is just absolutely insane. By the way, Jacob Rodriguez should have been a Heisman finalist. David Bailey to the Kansas City Chiefs with the 14th overall pick. Now we got the Dallas Cowboys, who have really been playing great as of late. If they don't sign George Pickens, I think Mekhi Lemon is definitely a possible choice here. Kenyon Sadiq, I think Jake Ferguson is playing, good enough, and I think he's a top 10 tight end in the league to where you don't have to, select a Kenyon Sadiq guys. So I think, like I say, Keldrick Falk just slightly finishes below David Bailey for me. But I'm going to go Keldrick Falk. Obviously, losing Micah Parsons, I think this would be a solid replacement. I do like Donovan Ezaraku as well, the rookie they drafted last year. But Keldrick Falk, to me, is the pick here for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, we got the Carolina Panthers. Mekhi Lemon is definitely a play here with Tet McMillan. I do like Xavier Legette, though, and Jimmy Horn Jr. He was a late round pick, I know. But I think their wide receiver room is good enough to the point where you don't absolutely need to select one. Kenyon Sadiq would be a great pick here, in my opinion. But you do have Tremble and Jatavian Sanders. I don't think they're that bad. And I think a lot of people sort of, overplay that situation there. I don't think they absolutely need a tight end. I think Jatavian Sanders and Tremble is good enough. I think this should be an offensive line pick here. And I'm going to go Olivaga Ione. I don't know how to say this guy's name, but I watched the tape on this guy. I really like him a lot. He's probably the best guard in the draft, in my opinion. So I think the last offensive lineman to go in the first round for Penn State was Olu Fashanu. And he's playing his tail off for the Jets. I think he's a stud tackle for the New York Jets, and I think he's someone they could build off. The New York Jets, this is a side note, but the New York Jets definitely have their tackle duo of the future in Armand Membu and Olu Fashanu. And Dante Moore is going to love those two guys. I think the Jets are going to be better sooner than a lot of people think. Are they the Jets? Yes, they will always be the Jets. But really, I don't know. This just randomly, I thought of Olu Fashanu, Penn State lineman. So next up, we got the Detroit Lions, though. The Detroit Lions, I don't think they have a lot of holes on their team. I really just don't. Center Connor Lew would be the pick here, but he did suffer, I think they said an ACL injury. Connor Lew here would definitely be the pick, but he did suffer an ACL injury, so I don't think he's going to be good to go. And for a team like the Lions that really, I assume, would want players that can play like right now, I don't know if they would go ahead and select a player that's probably not going to be there for the first few weeks or even for the first half of the season. So, to me, Sam Laporta, you still have him, so Kenyon Sadiq is not the player here. But Kenyon Sadiq is still on the board. I think he's probably the best player on the board right now. But guys, Avion Terrell, AJ Terrell's brother, like I said, I know that I just saw clips of him, and I did see those practice clips, but the guy is just insanely twitchy. He looks like a stud to me. And maybe I have last name bias and, family bias here because AJ Terrell, like I said, is his brother. But Avion Terrell, guys, I'm going to go ahead and select him. Terrion Arnold hasn't really lived up to what I think the Lions were expecting when they first drafted him. So maybe Avion Terrell could be that game changer on the outside defensively for the Lions. Now, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is where I think Kenyon Sadiq falls into their lap. I definitely think he's the best player on the board right now. So definitely falls in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' lap, guys. I think Cade Otton is a great tight end. Not great tight end, but I think he's, a serviceable tight end. But Kenyon Sadiq here, I think he's going to come into the league and just be a top 10 tight end right away, honestly. Similar to what I thought about Harold Fannin, by the way. Harold Fannin, I think, was a third-round pick for the Browns. Just an absolute steal. I think he's already a top 10 tight end in the league. He was a stud at Bowling Green. Now, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys, and Mekhi Lemon still on the board is so crazy. I definitely think to pair with DK Metcalf, this is why I chose Cardinal Tate to the Ravens. So Mekhi Lemon and Zay Flowers would just be super redundant, like I said, and then you would have Cardinal Tate with DK Metcalf. I just thought that would be super redundant as well. So I definitely think a mix of both is always better. You got someone that can dominate the underneath like a Mekhi Lemon, and then obviously over the top deep ball guy like a DK Metcalf would just be perfect. Don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Ty Simpson is definitely a player. This is his range to me. Towards the end of the first round, I definitely think this is a possible pick here with Aaron Rodgers likely retiring after the year. He is playing great, but I don't know what their plan is at quarterback. Maybe they go for a Kyler Murray, a guy like that, Kirk Cousins. I don't know who's going to be on the trade block. but just guys off the top of my head that I can think of. But Makai Lemon to the Pittsburgh Steelers makes too much sense, guys. I'm going Makai Lemon, Biletnikoff winner out of USC. Now we got the Philadelphia Eagles. They always just seem to find the best player on the board, and that's what the Philadelphia Eagles always do. Jalen Carter fell in their lap, Cooper DeJean. Just I don't know how they always do it, guys. I'm gonna go Romello Height. Romello Height is an absolute stud. Like I said, David Bailey and Romello Height going in the first round. Texas Tech's defense is absolutely insane. I could actually see Romello Height possibly going before David Bailey, but David Bailey is an absolute stud. But both these guys are studs. Romello Height to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we got the Houston Texans. Houston Texans are interesting, guys. They have probably the best or second best defense in the league. I just think this should be offensive line, obviously losing Laramie Tunsil. And I think Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor is the pick. I think that just makes too much sense. Caden Proctor basically fell into their lap. Now we got the Chicago Bears, guys. They're interesting. They're super interesting. I don't know what they do here. I think they don't have too many holes on their roster, weirdly, because I think they really draft pretty well. Maybe secondary is what I would assume. But TJ Parker being on the board intrigues me a lot. Caden McDonald definitely is shooting up boards for sure. Don't think they need another wide receiver. LT Overton, definitely an amazing player. Brandon Sizzy just declared for the draft. I know that. I saw that the other day. But Jermond McCoy was probably going to be CB1 in the draft had he not gotten injured. So that's just super unfortunate. They probably would have 2 first-round corners in Colton Hood and Jermond McCoy. Keith Abney is really, I think, is going to be a guy that shoots up boards. A.J. Harris is a draft dropper to me, actually, for Penn State. D'Angelo Pons I like a lot, but he's just so undersized. What do they have him listed as? 5'9". Yeah, he's just way too undersized, guys. When you saw him against Ohio State guarding Jerimiyah Smith, I really just felt bad for the guy. I mean, that's just like a 7-inch height difference, I believe they said. He's just too short, guys, but he is an absolute baller. I'm not trying to take anything away from him at all, but I think he's going to drop just because of 5'9" in the NFL, guys. It's so unserious. It's not gonna be sustainable, a 5'9" guy. So TJ Parker being on the board, like I said, Cassius Howe is a draft dropper to me. I know a lot of you guys are probably not gonna like that I said that, but guys, Caden McDonald or TJ Parker is probably the pick here. But TJ Parker just being on the board just doesn't look right to me. I'm gonna go TJ Parker out of Clemson. Now, we got the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills are interesting. Keon Coleman going through a bit of a situation there. Is there a wide receiver I love? This wide receiver class is special, man. Jacoby Lane, I'm super biased. I think he should be a little bit up here. Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane is so fun to watch for my USC Trojans. Jeremy Bernard, I think he's going to rise up here. Ian Strong, I don't think he's above a lot of these guys, I'll be honest. Chris Bell, I like a lot. KC Concepcion. Denzel Boston is a lot of people's wide receiver 3. Elijah Surratt, amazing player. Elijah Surratt and where's Omar Cooper? Yeah, Omar Cooper Jr., insane wide receiver duos. We got some insane wide receiver duos in college football. You got Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper, and then you got Jacoby Lane, Makai Lemon, and then you got Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, just so insane wide receivers. And then Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. There is some insane wide receiver talent in college football right now, and a lot of these players going to the draft. Zachariah Branch, I was a bit sad when he left the USC Trojans, my USC Trojans, but he's balling in Georgia. I think he'll be a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick probably. Jaden Greathouse, great player. Deuce Robinson, another USC guy who transferred to Florida State, big body guy. What do they have him listed as here? 6'6", yeah. Technically could be even transferable to it like a tight end, if I'm being honest, in the NFL. But guys, I mean, I think the Bills just really have their choice with wide receiver here. Denzel Boston could be kind of what a Keon Coleman was supposed to be, or what they were hoping could be. Denzel Boston, KC Concepcion, I like a lot. But just, like I said, super undersized. Elijah Surratt is, to me, I think he's going to go in the 1st round. I don't think a lot of people are expecting him to. This might be a hot take, guys. I think Elijah Surratt is better than Denzel Boston and KC Concepcion. Chris Bell, I like a lot as well. Am I crazy for thinking Elijah Surratt? I know a lot of people are starting to think Omar Cooper Jr. is better than Elijah Surratt just because he has a lot of highlight plays and a lot of these crazy catches. But when I watch Elijah Surratt, guys, he is just a baller. He's a gamer. I'm going Elijah Surratt over Denzel Boston and KC Concepcion here. I'm going Elijah Surratt to the Buffalo Bills. I think he's going to be a draft riser, guys. I know this is I might be a bit early on this take, but Elijah Surratt to me is wide receiver 4 in this draft after, the big three and Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, and Mekhi Lemon. Now, he's the 4th best wide receiver to me and has the Heisman Trophy throwing him the football, so I know a lot of people are probably going to take away from him just because of that. But Elijah Surratt's a gamer, guys. So now we got the Los Angeles Chargers have the worst offensive line in the league, guys. Horrible, horrible offensive line. I think it's graded as like one of the worst offensive lines of all time. But obviously a lot of that is due to injury because Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater have been injured. I think both are now out for the season. Rashawn Slater hasn't played a snap this season. He got injured in the preseason or before the season in the offseason. So, and then Joe Alt has played a few games, but I think he's now out for the season. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. But guys, Caden McDonald being on the board is crazy. Caleb Banks, I don't think is even a top 3 defensive lineman in this draft. It'd be Peter Woods, Caden McDonald before Caleb Banks for sure. I'm going to go Caden McDonald. I definitely think he's a riser in this draft. Caden McDonald, Ohio State, to Jim Harbaugh. So that'll be interesting. Now, we got the San Francisco 49ers. This might be crazy to some of you. I'm not going to go ahead and do it, but just to throw the idea out there. Dylan Thielman, this is a Purdue transfer who transferred to Oregon. And he got the game-winning interception versus, who did he get it against? I don't know who it was against. I don't remember who it was against, but he got a game-winning interception in overtime. I really like Dylan Thielman, guys. He's just a baller. I really like his game, but I'm not going to go ahead and do it. But the 49ers would be the team that would select him, in my opinion. They're saying the needs is a wide receiver. I don't agree with that at all. I think Brandon Ayuk is a bit of a hot case, but when he comes back, I think he will be a player on the outside for them. Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings. Even then, I just don't think they need to go ahead and select a wide receiver here. To me, guys, there's a variety of ways they can draft here. Caleb Lomu still being on the board. I think I'm going to go ahead and go Caleb Lomu here, guys. Looking at this list here, LT Overton would be a pick here for sure. But Caleb Lomu still being on the board, guys, it just doesn't really look right. Caleb Lomu is going to be the pick for the 49ers. Trent Williams getting up there in age, going Caleb Lomu here. Now, we got the Seattle Seahawks just have an absolute stud defense in general. The Seattle Seahawks just have a stud defense in general. So I don't think this needs to necessarily be a defensive pick. I know a lot of people are kind of questionable about their corners. A lot of people don't really like Rick Woolen. Seahawks fans, let me know down below, what do you think about Rick Woolen? I know a lot of Seahawks fans are a bit mixed on Rick Woolen, and a lot of people would like to see him be replaced maybe in this draft. But I don't think this needs to be necessarily a defensive pick. Could this be a wide receiver selection? I definitely do think it could. Cooper Kupp's not really looking too great. I know a lot of people really like Torrey Horton as well. But Cooper Kupp he's one of my favorite wide receivers of all time. And I'll tell you, he's getting to that age where he's just kind of falling off a bit, and that's okay. But you do have this season, I don't want to call him the best wide receiver in the league, but this season, technically, you could argue JSN is the best wide receiver in the league this season. So maybe you want to get someone to pair with him. But guys, this might be the team that selects Connor Lew. I do think, with Gray Zabel there now, I definitely think they're trying to build sort of that offensive line. But Connor Lew, even with the torn ACL, I do still think he's probably going to be a late first rounder. I'm going Connor Lew out of Auburn with the Seattle Seahawks. Now we got the Patriots here, guys. I think this needs to be offense here. Are they playing out of their mind? Yes. A lot of people would argue that they have the easiest schedule, in the league, sitting at 11-2 currently. Drake May is playing at an MVP level. I think he needs a bit more weapons on the outside. Like I said, I love Jacoby Lane. Is he a first rounder? Probably not. A bit of my bias would say he is. But Jeremy Bernard, like I said, is a riser. I do think he could potentially rise to the first round because I don't think a lot of people are realizing he's outplaying who a lot of people consider a generational talent in wide receiver at with Ryan Williams. Jeremy Bernard has legitimately been the one for Alabama all season over Ryan Williams. So Jeremy Bernard, I don't really like that he's all the way down here. I really just don't. Skylar Bell has, I think he was a Biletnikoff finalist. He has some crazy numbers. I peeped them the other day. I don't really watch UConn football. I'm not going to sit here and act like I watch UConn football, but Skylar Bell looked at his numbers and they look absolutely insane. Omar Cooper Jr., I do think doesn't need to be all the way down here as well. But I'm over here just yapping at this point. But Denzel Boston or Casey Concepcion is the pick here. I'm going to go Denzel Boston. Casey Concepcion. I do just think I want to see them get a big body threat for a Drake May. So Denzel Boston would be a great fit in New England to me. Now, the Denver Broncos, this is another wide receiver selection. Probably going to go KC here. But Jeremy Bernard is legitimately a pick here. Chris Bell, I think, could end up being a first-rounder. But Casey Concepcion, I do think Denzel Boston, I agree with PFF's rankings here. I do think both of these guys are first-rounders. I'm going to go Casey Concepcion to the Denver Broncos. Now, we got the LA Rams here. This is where it gets interesting, guys. Ty Simpson, I think, is the pick here. And I know a lot of you guys don't really like Ty Simpson, but Sean McVay, I mean, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to take a chance on a Ty Simpson, especially with your own first-round pick here. Obviously, you got a top 10 pick basically gifted to you with the Falcons. I believe that trade was for James Pierce Jr. Yeah, because the Falcons selected Jalen Walker last year, and then they traded back into the first round with the Rams to select James Pierce Jr. That's how they got this draft pick, for those of you guys that don't know. So, I mean, the Rams, guys, I just think it's worth it to select the Ty Simpson, because Ty Simpson looked great. Honestly, at one point in the season, he looked great, and he was a lot of people's quarterback one. So I definitely think it's worth it to take a swing on a Ty Simpson here at the end of the first round. So I'm going Ty Simpson here to the LA Rams. Now we got the New York Jets. They got this from the Sauce Gardner trade, it looks like. Could this be a team that takes a swing on a Jermod McCoy? With Sauce Gardner traded now, you could technically, I guess, trade Sauce Gardner and then replace him with Jermod McCoy, who this is, like I said, this was a lot of people's cornerback one coming into the season before he got injured. So would legitimately be a great trade-off if he were to pan out to who a lot of people think he could be. But Brandon Siss here and Keith Abney are probably going to be the pick above Jermod McCoy, unfortunately. I'm actually going to go Keith Abney the second over Brandon Sizzy here, guys. I know a lot of you guys do like Brandon Sizzy. Sorry to any Gamecock fans here. I don't think you're going to have any first-rounders. Brandon Sizzy probably is going to be your guy. Nick Harbor I do like a lot, though, in the later rounds. And then if Lenore Sellers were to declare, I think he could be the guy selected here, even with the Rams. I think Lenore Sellers has a lot of untapped potential for sure. I do think if he declared, I don't see why he wouldn't be at minimum a second-round pick. I mean, in terms of potential, he might have the highest potential out of any quarterback in this draft, honestly. So Lenore Sellers is a guy, I know we're talking about corners here, and I'm kind of just all over the place when I'm talking about these prospects, but I do just want to give some love to South Carolina Gamecock fans here, because I do like a lot of your guys' players. But I'm going to go Keith Abney the second to the New York Jets with the 30th overall pick. Now, we got the Cleveland Browns. I didn't go wide receiver with their first pick. Where are they at? I went Spencer Fano. Yeah, Spencer Fano with the 6th overall pick out of Utah, best tackle in the draft. Now, this is where I think you select wide receiver. I think this wide receiver class is legitimately so strong to the point where if I'm a team that needs offensive line and wide receiver, I go offensive line like the Browns, and then I go wide receiver. And like I said, you have 2 first-round picks if you're the Browns. So this could even be, a better pick. This is the Jacksonville pick, it looks like. This could end up being a top 20 pick. This could be in the early 20s. So you could maybe even get a guy like a Spencer Fano and a Mekhi Lemon. Or, even an Elijah Surratt would be great. And the Browns aced the draft last year. Harold Fannin, stud tight end. Mason Graham, stud defensive lineman. Dylan Gabriel, he's a lefty. I don't have much to say about Dylan Gabriel. Shador Sanders, great player. Looks to be like, he looks great right now, I'll be honest. I know a lot of you guys don't really like him because of the stuff off the field. But on the field, I don't like some of the stuff he does off the field either. But on the field, Shador Sanders is a baller. And I think he was overlooked in the draft because of a lot of different reasons. But I won't go too much into that. And then who else did the Browns select in the draft? Dylan Sampson, Quinshon Judkins, stud running back duo of the future. They're going to be solid for years to come. Quinshon Judkins is amazing, and I really do like Dylan Sampson. So the Browns aced the draft. I said it right after the draft. I think. Oh, Carson Schlesinger. How did I forget the best rookie in that rookie class? Probably going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I said it right after last year's draft. The Browns absolutely aced the draft. Other than their quarterback selections with Dylan Gabriel going in the third round, he had no business going in the third round, but they did make up for it selecting Shador with the 5th overall pick. So I just really liked their draft a lot last year. And I think if they did what I'm about to do in this first round, they'd have, they already have a solid foundation for the future. Obviously, you got one of the greatest defensive players of all time in Myles Garrett as well. I just really think the Browns are going to be better sooner than a lot of people think. It's Chris Bell or it's Jerimiyah Bernard here. I would like to take my brother Jacoby Lane, but I just don't think he's a first rounder. I think he's a second rounder for sure. I'm going to go Jerimiyah Bernard over Chris Bell. However, I do like Chris Bell a lot. I really like his size, 6'2", 220. But Jerimiyah Bernard, guys, I just think he's being overlooked right now. I do think once the combine comes, once a lot of people, once the season kind of cools down and people were able to look at the tape, Jerimiyah Bernard is going to end up being one of those draft risers. I'm going Jerimiyah Bernard in the first round to the Cleveland Browns. Now, we got the Dallas Cowboys. They got this trade. It looks to be from the Green Bay Packers in the Micah Parsons trade. I actually did not know that. So, guys, LT Overton still being on the board. Cassius Howell, Jermod McCoy, a lot of these guys. I know a lot of you guys probably have first-round grades on them guys, but Ian Strong as well, AJ Harris, a lot of great talent, guys. This draft is really good, especially defensively. Dylan Thiemann, guys, is a guy who I think could go in the first round. He's not getting a lot of first-round hype at all, but I think he's the second-best safety in the draft after Caleb Downs, honestly. So, Dylan Thiemann's going to be another draft riser. I'm just telling you guys all my draft risers projections right now. But to me, guys, LT Overton's probably going to be the last pick here for the Dallas Cowboys. I really like this pick. So LT Overton to the Dallas Cowboys, guys. Really like how this draft went, honestly. This is exactly what I think will happen right now if these teams were to be selecting. Just based off of their current play, based off of projections, this is what I think the draft could look like. But obviously, I'll have more drafts. This is just mock draft 1.0. But let me know what you guys think down below about this draft. I love making mock drafts. Let me go back to full cam here. I love doing mock drafts, guys, and I have fun doing it. I'm not claiming to be like a crazy analyst expert, but I have made mock drafts in the past, and they have been, somewhat accurate. I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I watch a lot of college football, so I feel like I'm credible to talk about these players and talk about these teams and based off what their needs are. But yeah, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for this mock draft video. If you guys want to see a mock draft 2.0, maybe after the national championship, I could do like a post-college football season draft, or, maybe even later down the road, post-Super Bowl, mock draft that you guys would want to see, post-combine. Obviously, that's later down the road. But just really had fun. Something new on this channel. Let me know. Open to any feedback if you guys want to see anything new. Please like this video if you're watching this far. I'm assuming you like the video, so please go ahead and drop a like for me on this video. And if you're new, please hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.